Hello, Adam. How to overcome depression. This is obviously a big subject. I know a lot of people struggle with mental health problems. I've talked about mine in the past. And I can only say what works for me. And I think what works for me is I try to accept how I feel. And it is incredibly difficult to do. I'd say it's a skill that needs to be learnt over time. Emotions are fleeting. That is, they appear and then they disappear. They're not linear. They don't stay like this forever. They feel like they're going to, and that's unfortunately the awful thing about anxiety and depression, these powerful emotions, is that you think they're going to last forever because they feel catastrophic. I remember years ago anxiety being something I had terribly when I was younger. And I've never told this story before, but the way I overcame my anxiety was I used to have anxiety attacks every day, right up till 2017 maybe. And I used to constantly fight the anxiety. I used every technique that I could find. I was a classic self-help guy. I'd do everything I could, diet, exercise, meditation, everything I could to get rid of these problems. And that in itself is sometimes a problem, is that you realize you're telling yourself all the time that there is a problem that needs to go and that the problem is bad. And for me, it was only when I came across acceptance that I overcame my anxiety. And what happened was the anxiety attacks became so debilitating and problematic. They were happening every day, all the time. And I went to my friend's wedding in 2017, maybe 2016. And I remember I was having an anxiety attack. I'd been having one all day. And I remember sitting in this church and I was looking up at these huge windows with Christ on. This is not a religious story. But I was, however, in this church. And the bride and groom were about to come down the aisle. And I remember feeling so paralyzed by fear and anxiety, not because I was at a wedding, just an accumulation of anxiety that had been in me for 15 years. And I sat and I remember for the first time I gave in to my anxiety. I said to myself, this is so awful and I've tried everything. The only thing left to do is to stop trying. And in this moment, I remember putting my hands face up on my knees, and I almost communicated with my anxiety, and I said, if you're gonna harm me, just do it. It was almost like a direct conversation, because we're always taught to fight our feelings so much. And in this moment, I just gave up. I decided I was done fighting. It had been 15 years, 16 years. And I remember putting my hands face up and I just completely let go of the fight. And something incredible happened. I felt the anxiety after about 30 seconds just leave my body. I now felt complete peace. And I think what happened was I stole the power of the anxiety. I took it away. For years previously to that, I'd been giving it power constantly by fueling it, feeding it, telling myself there was something wrong, trying to fix myself all the time. And in this moment, there was a release of letting go and saying, if you're going to hurt me, just do it. And the anxiety lost all its power. And I have to say, I've not had an anxiety attack since that moment. I've got to be careful when talking about mental health, because I don't want to certainly preach in general, but I don't want to preach that you should ever give up on anything. But when it comes to powerful emotions, there is certainly a tendency to try and fix everything. And I think sometimes self-acceptance can do a lot of the work for you. Some days you're going to feel bad. Some days you're going to feel anxious. And this is life. This is part of your experience of being a human. And the more we can be with those feelings and accept that they come and go, they're not linear, they rise and fall. You're going to have good days and bad days. And as soon as you accept that, you can hopefully make some progress. And my experience of mental health is that I struggle with it every day, even now, all the time. but my life has got better since accepting it. So if anyone out there is suffering, I recommend doing some reading about acceptance. There's a book about anxiety written by someone called Claire Weeks, who teaches this method of, it's called floating with anxiety. It's about releasing it as opposed to fighting it. I recommend this. And I thought I would mention some of these things because a lot of our fans I know are suffering, and it's good to, I don't want to stay silent on it. I've experienced, and in my experience, this is what worked for me, trying to be more accepting.